video. And nice to see you, Zugbi. Thank you very much for joining us. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure having you.
Hello.
Welcome to Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we have weekly sessions on peace studies and sustainability in Africa and across the world. I will begin by introducing our speaker for today. And I would like to say that after his talk, which will take about 1 hour or so, then we'll have a session for questions and answers. And to make sure that we we listen carefully, we can turn off our microphones, we can mute our microphone so that we can hear the speaker. And now I will take this opportunity to introduce Zugbi, who is actually the newly elected president of the International Fellowship of Reconciliation. So we congratulate you, Zugbi, our brother, and what a pleasure having you. We understand that Zugbi is the founder and director of the Palestinian Conflict Transformation Center in Palestine. And he's a world-renowned speaker, trainer, counselor, activist, and writer. He has written and edited extensive articles, booklets, and books on the interdisciplinary topics of justice, peace, and reconciliation, and also on oral history and didactic stories. I will not take much time so that we can listen to our speaker. I know that probably you are joining us from Rome now, and so the floor is yours, Zugbi, please. You are muted.
Thank you very much, George. Appreciate your invitation and the support and the nice words. I hope I can live up to it. I am in a conference with Pax Christi International, and I wasn't sure about the internet, but I moved to other place. So hopefully that internet will be okay with us, because in our meeting was not.
I see.
So,
but at least we can hear
happy
you. Great.
With all of you. Yes. I speak slowly, and I have no problem if anyone wants to ask questions after 30 minutes, because I love to have it interactive rather than as if I am lecturing. I like to have a type of workshop. I am glad to be with you and to meet. I know there are many people there, and I know the African continent, and as we are in the Middle East. And I think we want peace, justice. And when I talk about justice, I'm talking about restorative justice, how to redress the wrongs rather than avenging it. So we are calling ourselves a student for justice, not vengeance. And we would like to spread light with those who are supporting us and those who are not, because at the end, we are brothers and sisters in Christ as Christians. We are brothers and sisters in this global village. Yes, we face a lot of things. And I think for me, when I look at African people, where really I was uplifted in my visit to Sudan and meet with people other people from different parts of Africa. And I feel that I see everyone is in the image of God, because, and we are part of this global family, part of global village, and humanity is our umbrella. But there are many challenges for peace and for working peace. You know, are we for peace building, conflict prevention, for transformation? Are we for conflict resolution? What does mean peace? And what does mean peace building? I feel if we follow the holistic approach to peace building, we will see others as, if you have another terminology, the enemy is a friend, the waiting. Our brothers and sisters are not our rivals. Beloved community, as Martin Luther King talked about, seeking for truth, for reconciliation, based on coexistence and rendering rights. Yet, when we talk about peace building, there are many difficulties and hardships. One of them is the issue of power. You know, if you look at conflicts anywhere in the different continents, we see between powerful and powerless people. In any conflict, there are oppressed, there are oppressors, and there are third party. But at the same time, I believe in the hyphenated character. I could be oppressed now by the occupation, but I could be oppressor. When I talk about hyphenated character, it is a terminology to help me accountable, to help me be human. It means also I could be a terrible guy. As we violence. Let's talk about victims and perpetrators. You know, their non-violent struggle to get rid of being victims. And we need to see their creative and innovative methods. And we are not overgeneralizing. Those who are in the rear are the same. And I call them the pro-justice group, the pro-peace group. And what they need is to have a preventive approach to help their government, their nation, their tribe to get rid of being the perpetrator. So the victims need to have proactive approach of nonviolence. Those who are in the together with other oppressors, but they might not be oppressors, to have a preventive approach of nonviolence to help. And the third party, usually we talk about UN, church-related organization, faith-based organization, peace groups, networks, you know, partner. What is needed from them always to empower the weak, bring the strong to their senses and not to their needs. I repeat, what is the third party? The third party is the umbrella for different groups, locally, regionally, internationally, on the global, strong to their senses, not to their needs. This is one hurdle. If we are able to violence and to have multi-track diplomatic approach, to have a way that is different than the traditional skills of listening, and I call it compassionate listening, because we want to hear the other with our heart. with our mind, because we don't want to say, oh, I listen to you. No, I want to hear him, her, hear the group with my heart. So I call it compassionate listening, because sometimes when we are compassionate to each other, not only we discover humanity of the other, but also between us, and move forward for a better synergy, you know? And this is very important, restorative justice. And we see restorative justice, I don't know the audience if they are from one religion or many religions, we see it in many religions, restorative justice. And we hope to see it based on redressing the wrongs, correcting the mistakes, offering, you know, apology, acknowledgement of what happened, and from the side of the victim to pardon, and of course, the heart of it, acknowledgement of the mistakes, pardon, and compensation. Because the only way that we break violence and we involve in peace building is to break the cycle of violence through restorative justice, the small level, regional level, and international level. Yet we see some of that in different spaces. We saw it in South Africa, but not 100%. We saw it in ending the conflict in Northern Ireland and the Balkans. Hopefully, we will see it in ending the conflict in Ukraine. And the Middle East of the world. This is really very important message, that peace building should be based on restorative justice. When there is conflict, either people becoming historical or hysterical. Historical, it is when we begin talking about chicken and egg. And this is very difficult a peace process or peace building. The issue is there are many narratives, and we need to validate narratives, not necessary to say it is to honor those who have different narratives and to move forward. Listening, compassionate listening, but also if we talk, collect information, map it, analyze it, and help to find solution through creative ways, innovative ways. And many times we see the conflict or the clash or the war, not only physical war, but a clash of narratives. And mind you, we are not talking about only two narratives. There is one main narrative here, one main narrative there, and there are sub-narratives on every place. How to deal with that? We need a group of people who come from different disciplines and have the interdisciplinary way to help us see the situation from a holistic point, based on humanizing each other, based on focusing on the interest of the different groups, and not to focus on the position of each group that will not help us in peace building or in understanding. And so therefore, we need to work. I don't like the word tolerance. Many people say we need to be tolerant to each other, because tolerance has kind of ending period. There is a structure of acceptance, to accept others as they are, as well as the others will accept us as we are. culture of acceptance is very important in moving towards peace building, because many of us would like to create the other on our image, or create that on denying themselves, denying their needs, denying their interests. No, I think when we talk about peace building, honoring the personalities of each other, moving towards responding to the needs of each person. And this is really very helpful and very moving, talking about how to work not for a melting culture, melting point, but to work for a mosaic culture. If we talk about local, regional, or think that we are one group, we have many groups, many nations, many religions, and the idea of mosaic culture to keep the nation as they are, but to be in harmony with others, different colors, different religions, different groups. So mosaic culture, locally and regionally and internationally. I focus on these things because I don't want to talk about a conflict here or conflict there, but to talk about the world, the region, the local issues from a mosaic culture. And when you talk about differences, differences are not healthy sometimes, but also could be healthy, could be very good, because as if you use the Hegelian way, thesis have antithesis, and then to look for synthesis. And this is how progress happens. And this is how synergy creates. This is how inventions, creating more culture, how to respect each other personally, private space, as well as focusing on the counting. We should be holistic and multi-track. And of course, people who are oppressed, we should think how to help them in non-violent movement. Because this is the other, and they can do that non-violently based on non-cooperation with the praxis of evil, if I'd like to say. We talk about non-cooperation with the power to be, which is not based on justice, just power, non-cooperation. So really, we need to find ways to, and how we can really undermine the power of darkness and oppression, even if it's needed to have new institutions, to be creative and by building capacity, by creating a different coalition and collaboration. And of course, many times we see in the whole world that is the misuse and manipulate of religious practices and religion. And as people who are interested and involved in peace building, I believe we need to transform use of religion and religious practices source for peace for coexistence, for restorative justice. Because if we talk about religion, and I think all religions, lots of common ground, they are all a source of peace building. Yes, you might find this verse or that or some part of the history, but in the long run, they talk about morality. They talk about coexistence. It's very important to work in peace building on to transform religion. That doesn't mean tomorrow the religious leaders, all of them will be peace lovers. I think for those who are in the field of them on their shoulders, they need to help others see the truth from a different perspective. Human beings, students, social workers, psychologists, that really we could transform persons, could transform institutions. We can search for the truth in different way. Of course, there are different ways of struggle. The struggle of the person, struggle of the community, and non-violent struggle. As Martin Luther King, through non-violence, we need to struggle, suffer, and sacrifice. There will be no change without struggle, sacrifice, and suffering. Not to have causing victims. This is the power of non-violence, power of love, power of agape. You are changing the other. You are changing the way that he or she thinks. It is not easy. I'm talking as a human being living in Palestine under the occupation for a long time, and how to see the occupation dehumanize us. Every day we face killing, land confiscation, all the human rights violation from this side or that side really is clear in our way, in our life. So we need to struggle on the personal level, community level. We have Israeli peace activists. Yes, they are smaller number, but they are a ray of hope. We need to cooperate with them. And the people in the world, Africa, Latin America, North America, Europe, we can really create a new network, a new cooperation, and if we are able to do that, at the same time, we should diplomatic struggle. Use the from being futile to we need UN, because it is the family of the globe. It is the umbrella for all nations. And we need to reform it. We need to work with it, to challenge those who are in power, through the different countries. And of course, this leads us to advocacy. I think advocacy is very important and peace building. Because we cannot really work for peace without having advocacy. Again, advocacy in non-violent ways. And if you talk about any conflict in the world, we need, again, to discover creative channels for advocacy without demonizing the other. But this saves you. And we need to tell that, yet we might not be able to express others' ideas, at least to express ourselves and to respect the story of others, whether you believe it is true or not, but not to create enmity as a result of what they say. And we need need to talk about it. To tackle the injustices against one nation, we need to have also justice within the nation. We need to work for citizenship of that country. Yes, we are citizens of the world, a small village, but yes, we struggle against injustices outside by oppressive regimes, colonialism, injustice internally in every town, in every place, in every tribe, because we cannot be holistic. If I struggle against injustice, against the occupation, and I was terrible with my people, this will not help. So we need to work for justice in all levels. And one of the main issues is the respect of women. You know, because women suffer a lot. In any tyrant, in any oppression. So we need to focus on UN Security Council 1325, which talk about women, peace, and security, and on the CEDAW Agreement, Convention on Elimination of all discrimination against women. I know it's not easy to talk about these in a patriarchal society like our society. But justice through gender mainstreaming, through gender sensitivity, we will recruit allies, groups, open-minded, with the tribal people who are open-minded, and youth, women, justice organizations, interfaith organization, together to create a different scenario. When we talk about peace building, we always tend to overgeneralize when there's conflict. I think we need, yes, we have no problem attacking the system, but to be soft on the people. You know, hate the sin, but not the sinner. Systems are evil. We might see some people operate with the systems, but these people could be transformed. So that's why we need to separate between the system and the people. It's very important. Yes, in our situation, we are not against Jews. We are against the occupation. The civil rights movement was not against the white and discrimination. In South Africa was not against the Africano. It was against South Sudan, not because of North Sudan as a human beings, but against the policy of discrimination and extremism that was practicing. So separation between the system and the people is very important. You know, again, I talked about victim perpetuator, hyphenated. For the Holocaust, you know, we talk about Jews, direct victims, and others. And we become, as Palestinians, the indirect victims of the Holocaust. And the problem is, we saw some of the victims become perpetrators, and different programs, not only in Israel, but in other parts of the world. How we need to transform the victims, we need to transform the perpetrators, and I think it is the time to move from blaming, because blaming is toxic, from pointing the fingers. There are 3 fingers pointed at me. From the guilt, because enhancing guilt in others paralyzes them. You know, from dwelling on victim. So we need to move from all of that to assume collective responsibility. Assuming collective responsibility that we responsibility that lead us to a better life, to a better approach, to a move forward towards justice and peace, you know. So this is collective responsibility. Help us to have a win results, win, not just some game. Or we talk about religion, we talk about history. You know, the enemy for peace building are 3 things, at least at this moment. The arms trade, how much money some groups, you know, generate from arms trade. And we move from sophisticated weapons to more sophisticated weapons. And we see on the war of Ukraine, how much money generated from arms trade. And this is how can we stop using the arms trade to create conflicts. Second one, the manipulation of using resources of other nations. We see how the conflict over the resources and how enslavement of people with its allying with the supreme powers, great powers, to use the resources in the South and to humiliate people here and there and to manipulate the use of these resources and to have more gains, you know, whether, and nowadays we will see the conflict will increase over the resources of gas and oil. If the war on Ukraine, what is the option of peace building? Is to have fair trade, to treat each other with. This is very important if we want to have a paradigm shift. To use the resources and to exchange a fair approach and to focus rather than on their position. Positions will lead to stubbornness and will lead to conflict. And again, we talk about win-win equation and not zero-sum game. You know, look how much money spent on military budgets all over. How much the war on Ukraine and to support Ukrainians, 1 million refugees from Ukraine went back. Because there aren't enough resources in the host states to support them. Billions of dollars has the world who support this or that only spend 10% of this budget of war on rehab. I don't think there will be any more miseries, but the problem is either my way or you take the highway, and this will not help at all. You know, We need a spiritual revolution for peace building. We need to have beloved communities in every place. And we need to tell people nonviolence is the art of the strong and the practice of the strong. Yes, it needs sacrifice to be heard, not to hurt us. We need spiritual revolution as a way of life, as a doctrine for life, to relate to each other, and who don't believe in God, to see the humanity in every creature, and to work for humanism, if you are Christian, work for pluralism, dialogue of cultures and religions, not dialogue for photo opportunity. We talk about dialogue to work for culture of acceptance, to accept each other as they are, as we are, and to move forward, to learn from the mistakes. And the problem now, we are not learning from the previous experiences. For 14, Second World War, 39, 45. And now we have Third World War, whereas everywhere. Slavery was everywhere. Persecution was everywhere. What is the purpose of it? To have more risk, to gather more sources, be based on expense of the poor, the marginalized, not for peace building. We need to call a spade a spade. We need to work for justice and peace. Martin Luther King says, we are in a global family and we care for each other. John Donne always, the poet says, no man, no woman is an island. If a cloth is washed away by the sea, Europe is the less. We say now, if a cloth, a small rock, washed away by the sea, the whole world is less. Yes, we are not our brothers and sisters keepers. We are our brothers and sisters, We need to talk about this amicable solutions and heartfelt relationship based on cooperation, collaboration for the common good. Yes, as I mentioned before, we are different. And everyone has different religion, different tradition, different history. Such differences should be enriching us rather than creating conflicts between us. We need to celebrate the differences. We need to work on the transformation. And conflicts happen, we need a reconciliation committees. Because again, another conflict. We need to tell the truth. We need to solve conflicts and transform it. And the injustices done to the whole people in every pressure and every from us, again, as people who believe in peace building and transformation, we need to find allies. We need to create networks. We need cooperation and collaboration diplomacy, because alone we cannot do it. We need spiritual revolution, but also we need means to enhance our talk and walk of nonviolence, of peace building. We need all of that. Otherwise, we cannot move. And one thing, are we evaluating many events in history? Where is the evaluation? How can we correct the mistakes of the past? How can we change lenses to find ways to create better atmosphere? And of course, in our approach, there were many massacres. There were many pogroms. There were many ugly wars. I cannot say the Armenian massacre is better than other massacres and we need to care for it. We shouldn't compete for victimhood. And we shouldn't believe in hierarchy of pain. Every group, every nation, every religious group have suffered in a way or another. And their feelings and emotions we should validate, and we see, for example, the United States as great power. It was under the British occupation. That's why the British at that time in the United States, who are suffering from the colonial power of England and others, have the Boston Tea Party. They say, no taxation without representation. And then the United States was independent. But at the same time, he asked the question whether the United States is playing its role. I was watching a movie called, I think, Superman. There, this guy say, I love to be great power. But again, we should remind us to have great power. Great power is associated, be a peace activist group as government. That States, again, is part of the conflict. Create more conflicts. We're NATO get a different synergy supporting this group against, and this is true for many national states here or there in the world. But again, I talk about morals and live up to your revolution. That doesn't mean the Arab nation states are bad or the Islamic nation states are oppressive approaches. And we need, again, people's movement. We need the civil society to move and to create a better atmosphere. And for peace builders, yes, we need to refrain quickly from taking sides. If we talk beginning, we need to go. And we say, for building, I need to go to any conflict in the world and to see what is happening, to learn what is happening, rather than to rush to and conclusions. And one thing that's needed always, to listen to the stories of the people, to listen attentively with compassion, and to empower the steadfastness who are struggling violently, and to empower their walk and talk of nonviolence. Probably I talked a lot. I'll stop here, opening the floor for questions.
Thank you so much, Zugbi, for this wonderful presentation. And we are sorry, of course, about the connection was not that great, but we have heard, I think, a lot of insights from our brother Zugbi. And so now it's time for questions and comments. If you may just raise your hand, you can put your question in chat and we read it out for you. So who wants to begin? Would you like to start, Thomas?
I'm happy to start.
Please do. Thank you.
Yeah. Firstly, Dr. Zougbi, thank you for your brilliant talk. You may remember I came and interviewed you at WEAM years ago for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East. We were both younger and perhaps more optimistic, but I'm so pleased to see you're still full of fire and faith to hear you talk. I was taking notes, and you said there were 3 enemies for peace building. And you said the first was the arms trade, the second was, manipulation of resources. And then you talked about the need for a spiritual revolution. The implication was that the third enemy of peace building is spiritual ignorance, although you didn't actually say
exactly.
Could you just explain how, the indifference of religions, the indifference of the smugness of certain types of religions, and the dogmatism of my religion is the only one, the best one. How can we change all that round? So what is the enemy of spiritual revolution and ignorance and wisdom, rather? How can we yeah.
It is the extremism and fundamentalism. And here I don't refer to one religion. There are extremism and fundamentalism in every practicing religion. And we need to talk about spirituality. Spirituality is a kind of umbrella for all religions. And to talk about the common, and that my religion is better than your religion. You are infidel. You are not kosher. You will not be saved. All of these terminology will ignite religious conflict. I don't want to be part of this religious conflict, either to be victorious, to defeat the enemy, or to have a seat in heaven. I don't want to have a seat in heaven. I don't want to be against the enemy. I share with others who differ from me in religions and focusing on the common growth, many common between religions, and we are fighting extremism. Many times all of us believe that God created us in his image. But for those extremists here and there, we are creating God in our image. This creates a non-healthy situation and more conflict. So what I look for, help us to relate to each other, to unlearn a lot of the teachings of some, or to kill the others, as when they kill others, they think that they are serving God. We need to focus on humanity. We need to focus on citizenship rights in every state. We need to talk about human rights, and we talk about 6 family groups, if you'd like. We talk about political and civil rights, economic and social rights, the rights of self-determination, environment void of chemical weapons, mass destruction weapons, the right to preserve your cultural and religious centers, and the last one, the right of free conscience, to choose freedom of conscience. And if we are able to have these rights with the spirituality revolution and respect of others as they are, and to teach religion in mixed groups by the people of the followers of the religion, rather than me talk about Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, how could I really be just to explain that? To have someone from each religion to teach this religion to the people based on respect, dignifying. Yes, we are having different convictions, but there is a space for more understanding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Can we go to Ronald and then honestly, Joe, please. Ronald, could you start?
Thank you so much, Dr. George. Thank you so much, fellow webinar participants and our participants. I apologize, I've just come in, but my question is relevant. I've heard of the 3 enemies to peace building. Yes, it's true. We need to fight them. But I have an issue of the moral rearmament. We all know that peace building begins within us before it is shared outside. But most of us are not really faithful. There is a challenge I've been noticing, especially let me take an example of our webinar on which we are all tonight. Sharing contacts ends when somebody has just presented. After that, there is no more communication. Some of us want knowledge sharing, but when participants come in, most of them don't want even their contacts to be shared. A few who share, when you write to them, they don't respond. What is that? Are we really meaning peace? Are we really meaning the unity, the golden rule that we want, the compassion, if we ourselves don't first revisit our morals? I think we need moral rearmament ourselves to strive and create that bond, that unity. Like me, I'm in Uganda in one of the remote areas, but most of the participants on the webinar, you send an email, none communicates, none responds. It's like one comes after he goes away. I think it should be commented on our dear presenter, in addition to the 3 greater enemies of peace building, that we must be able to have a strong voice to share the same peace communication, peace literacy. Then we see that peace prevails. Thank you so much, Dr. George.
Thank you, Ronald. And probably Speaker Zugbi, you may wish to respond to that. And of course, for the webinars, definitely, if one has a question and wants to contact another person, of course, you can always also send, this request in chat, for example. And I'm sure that, the conversation will proceed from there. We are actually even planning to have an international conference where we can actually meet, face to face, which will be actually very important. Then we can actually also share even more than that's what we have here at the webinar.
Thank you so much, Dr. George. People should share emails that are really functional. Maybe we receive those that are not on, they should be like activated, because before that meeting, people should be in the know, should be in communication, should be expectant that, oh, an international conference has come. Let me hope to see Professor Sufiano. Oh, let me plan. I will discuss this with the so and so. But you may reach there when you don't know the person and it becomes really hard. Thank you, Doctor. It really hurts me, and I see peace is having a loophole there.
We will work on that.
Thank
you so much, Ronald.
Thank you, Doctor.
Or maybe we can go to, honestly, just Joe. He has also been a regular participant. And so your question, please, or comment, Joe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really enjoyed it. So I love the thing you said about we need to figure out how to humanize each other. I think the best way to do that would be to find ways to see ourselves or to show ourselves in each other. Yes, because like if I see myself, if I see something that I can do in someone else, that creates a bond, because when I do that thing by myself intimately, there's something I understand about it. And when I see it somewhere else, that intimacy is transferred. And if we can find a way to do that, that'll also solve the problem of acceptance that was mentioned again. Because it's like, when I now see something that's in me, inside you, then accepting you becomes easy. This is why I've always been interested in I love media. I love movies and stuff like that. And a lot of the movies, when it comes to peace and violence, peace, or rather, let's say they lean more to the violent side. And I feel like we're being very careful with what we're doing with the media, with especially with what we can do with it today. And that's why I think if I was an advocate for something, I would advocate for a reform in how we create media in such a way that, because it's a power that we haven't yet realized that we can actually use it to change the society for the good, because these are ideas we're taking in a natural state, you know? And so we're wasting a lot of time and space that we could be using beneficially. So yeah, I just want to make sense. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you so much. Zubi, you may comment if you wish on any of those points.
I think virtual and Zoom conferences are great, but the most greatest one is when we have face-to-face and when we have clear communication. I know many parts of the world, the internet might not work very well. I think is very needed. And I don't differ from what people and colleagues said. It is all true, and we need to foster our ready to learn and share from others.
Great. Thank you so much, Zubi. Any other questions? Ronald, your hand is raised. Is that a new hand? You are muted, Ronald. Yes, please.
I can still add on the BP's Africa podcast, reminding fellow webinar participants that this is a medium for peace building and golden rule instruction. It's BP's Africa podcast where you can subscribe. It is a new medium of communication where each one is free to have a peace building communication that could be shared via that medium. So I call upon everyone to visit the BP's Africa podcast and subscribe. I know it will be of good use. Compassion is always shared as an element of the golden rule ethic. Without compassion, we cannot do much. Empathy, feeling each other's need or pain. This is one of the principles of the golden rule ethic that we must equip ourselves with. We must exercise. Then that engagement, the uniqueness of the golden rule ethic is it is functional. You can never deceive or lie. It is practical. So that engagement and then the unity. After going through the other three, then the fourth one is the unity. We must strive to see that we don't lose that oneness that we have achieved. That is what will bind us together and then forcefully have a sustainable peace development or movement that will change our communities. I also want to comment about the International Cities of Peace. This is a body striving to see that each community can become a city of peace. It begins with everyone, leaders or community members. You become one, and then you engage in this peace building, and peace building differ from one community to another. Each community has got its own approach to building peace. So make sure that you become a seat of peace. I want to see the entire country of Tanzania. I want to see the entire African continent subscribing and becoming an international seat of peace. Our Chief Executive Officer is John Fred Ament. He's in the United States of America, but we have got liaisons in different countries who are mentoring others to see to it that we become a seat of peace. So we use the golden rule ethic as a norm for this peace building. So the golden rule, next year, Dr. George, I will seek for an audience to present about it. The golden rule is very, very important. So thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah, you are welcome. Thank you so much. And there is a request actually from the chat. Some two people, you know, Otto and Lester, and of course also myself actually, that we are interested also in having a lecture if possible, if you can have a copy. I know that our speaker was not reading, but if that would be possible to share your talk, that would be excellent. Then we can share it with other people. That's a request to you, Zugbi. And I can see also Thomas has a hand up. So please, Thomas, go ahead.
Yes. So this is a question about Africa and Palestine. This is an African peace building forum. And I'm speaking as someone that is mindful of British history. Obviously, it was a colonial power. We did terrible deeds throughout the world, but we woke up and we finally learned from Gandhi, and we became. There are also good British people who. There is a strong peace movement in Britain, and you know, there are many people that want a solution to Israel-Palestine, like tomorrow, yesterday. I'm one of those. I feel the Commonwealth is quite a useful vehicle. I'm Canadian as well as British. I've set up the Commonwealth Interfaith Network, which George Mutalemwa is helping in Tanzania and other, you know, there are many African Commonwealth countries. South Africa is perhaps the most important, Nigeria. When I met Afif Safie many years ago, I ran meetings in Parliament on Israel-Palestine. He said, an independent Palestine, when we can get it, would want to join the Commonwealth as an independent, free, sovereign nation. And I think that's a brilliant idea, you know. And I wondered what, you know, why we can't do that. And can't we marshal the resources of the Commonwealth? 53 nations, for God's sake, Canada, Australia, some of them are very wealthy, India, Pakistan, to help rebuild the infrastructure of Palestine as it moves towards independence. You know, things like a railway connecting Gaza and the West Bank, and rebuilding a port, an airport, all these kind of things the Commonwealth could help with. I'm not a politician, I'm only an interfaith theologian expert, but I think the Commonwealth can help spiritually. The wisdom of African nations is profound. I'm in humility at the incredible depth of, you know, culture in all these countries. So anyway, I just want to offer that. And I wondered if, Dr. Zubi, if WEAM Centre has ever reached out to the Commonwealth. Have you had funding support? Do you get, you know, the Commonwealth, I think, could be a helper here. That's my dream anyway, my prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Zugbi, would you like to respond to that and the previous comments?
That is great. Ways how to reach the Commonwealth. I'll be happy to walking in his shoes. Thank you for your question or your suggestion. I have only 3 minutes left because I have a meeting if there is another question.
All right, thank you. Then we understand that Zubi will be leaving in 3 minutes. So I think we just take this time to say thank you very much to Zubi and to the rest of us, the rest of you. And there was actually this request whether you could share a copy of your presentation, Zubi. Is that possible?
I will write it down. Okay.
Great, thank you.
I will share it and we'll be in touch.
Great. Yeah, thank you so
All right.
much. And of course, as
and
you
any
know,
other question, please send me.
all right, we will do that. And as you know, we'll be also, publishing a book based on our presentations. And actually the deadline is the 15th of this month. So you could also use that opportunity to share your lecture with us through that book that we hope that will be published by Springer International. So thank you very much, Zubi. And probably the rest of us, we might stay a bit around and maybe exchange our contacts and so on. Maybe also have some more questions that we can also discuss. But we have like 17 minutes and we'll be closing. So thank you very much, Zubi, for your time. And we wish you all the best in Rome and of course in Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, sorry that of course also the connection was not that great, and we'll try to see what we can do in the future. But as you know, technology sometimes is just beyond our control.
Thank you. No, I finished. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I just mentioned that we will have a conference which is still really in the preparatory stages. Actually, we hope that it will take place in 2024 and would like to definitely reach out to you and ask for your participation, and we'll definitely send out a call for papers so that you can also contribute papers and make presentations at the conference. And of course, it will be also important to have a network of networks, as it were, that you are representing various networks like Ronald, for example. Of course, I know Thomas and the rest also have their own networks. That will be actually for us an important a forum for us to be able to exchange ideas and contacts and meet and share more. Since this is still at a very early stage, I can't say much, but I hope that we'll be able to work together with the African Peace Research and Education Association, as well as the International Peace Research Association, definitely the World Wisdom Forum, and many of our networks that we can work together. And so, yeah, it will be really lovely to meet, and actually should be in Tanzania. That's the proposed place, that's the venue will be in Tanzania. So actually that's in short what I wanted to share. Of course, also I mentioned the book that we are writing, and This will be our third book. And so the deadline is the 15th. We still have a few days left, just more than a week. And so you can just send your chapter, your manuscript to me, and then we'll go through all the processes of editing, proofreading, etc. So thank you. That's what I want to share with you. There's another question. Can we apply for funding to the Commonwealth for this conference? Yes, of course. It's a good question, Thomas. So we'll try and see who can support us. And I really hope that we'll manage to organize this conference and continue with our publications. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please, Thomas.
Well, I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but you know, I just watched last night a film on Netflix called Faha, which is a brilliant movie made by Palestinians about their story. And Netflix is a huge platform with, you know, hundreds of millions of viewers. So I think that's part of reclaiming the everyone's stories. As Dr. Zugby was saying, the oppression begins with the oppression of stories. I'm involved in deep research into, say, the British history. How did the British become so evil? You know, why did they go off and conquer all these countries? It started out with the oppression of the Celts. The British stopped the Irish from telling their stories. They wouldn't let the Catholic faith in Ireland flourish. Actually, it was illegal to have Irish-speaking schools. And they, you know, it was a criminal offense. So it's this, and that's something I've got very interested in researching. I'm part Irish, and also it happened in Scotland. So I think what Dr. Zugby was saying about the oppression of truth and the oppression of one's narrative, that's the beginning of all the catastrophes. So the antidote, that's why I set up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East. And I went and interviewed Dr. Zugby in his peace center, WEAM. I still have that footage. It's on a documentary I made, along with others. The idea of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East is to get those stories told again. And you know, I mean, I'm very disturbed at this rightward shift in Israel's politics. It's like, it reminds me of someone just going into a bunker and refusing to hear the other side and feeding themselves in their own echo chamber, their bubble, with only the news that they want to hear. So how do we puncture those mono syllabic kind of you know, and they are, as Dr. Zugby said, they're you know, we are the supreme victim. Therefore, we will not hear your story. And that's, I mean, even in Brexit in Britain, the Brexit crowd created this myth, the great oppressive European Union. They peddled themselves as the victim nation, and plucky Britain was going to escape from evil Europe. I mean, if you can do that using social media, you can create any kind of myth. So anyway, there we are. How do we puncture these bubbles of lies, which is what they are? But the trouble is the people inside them don't realize they're lies. It's like the Trump narrative. They're the victim in their eyes. So this is a job for philosophers. How are we going to puncture all this? You know, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thomas. And maybe Joe has a response to that. Joe,
Yes,
please go ahead.
Yes, I think I do. I think this is why I love movies, and I'm fortunate to be, I guess, something like a scholar, right? Now I'm imagining a Hollywood for scholars, like literally based on like entertainment that's peer reviewed on facts. You know what I mean? And then that's presented as close as close as possible as it is, because I've always wondered what the impact of media, any kind of media, is, and I'm realizing it's bigger than we realize. It's bigger than we realize, and so I think a solid entity that's really for truth was to have the same powers that Hollywood has, because and they were not driven by profit. So it shouldn't be driven by profit, because profit is what makes you want to make the story outrageous. But if you want to just tell the story as it is, but in the best way possible, I feel like it's at this point we can only fight fire with fire, because too many people are distracted by lies. And so you need to make the truth as appealing as the lies are appealing to people, because unless you get the people in on the truth, you're going to be fighting alone. And now, because the people have been tricked into a lie, my suggestion is they have to be tricked into the truth now.
Well,
Yeah, great idea. Thank you so much, Joe. And I'm just looking for, yes, please, Lester Kurtz.
I like the direction we're going here, but one of the things I'm wondering is if we can make more use of these venues that are showing films that get our message across. And yeah, I'm not sure how to do that, but you know, I'm sure it's even more complicated with the streaming media, like Netflix. You know, I don't know anything about Netflix or how it's run or who controls it, or whether there's any way of like, how do you, if you could find out, say you could find out who watched Farha and contact them, you know, can you the sort of ways of, we need to build an infrastructure, you know, like George's network of networks, right? We need to be building an infrastructure, and we have to be really clever, because we don't have the money that the people who are running the world have. We don't have their infrastructure, but maybe there are ways we can hook into it. You know, I remember once when we were at the University of Texas, we in the anti-nuclear movement in the early 80s, and we put up a poster. You know, if you oppose the nuclear buildup, you know, meet at the football stadium at such and such a time, Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. And, you know, tens of thousands of people showed up. Well, they showed up for the football game, not for our demonstration. But we were kind of trying to tie into like what's already going on, you know, in other structures. You know, maybe when a really wonderful film is showing at a theater, we can be outside, you know, getting people's contact information or having some kind of, you know, connection with the people who they're coming out of the theater. They've been moved by this incredible film. How do we link them into how do we draw them into a movement? How do we draw them into a network for change? So maybe, you know, it's like there are a lot of you know, Gene Sharp had 198 categories, and we have you know, oh gosh, I'm blocking out on his name. We have a recent addition to that, and a lot of people and the people in Iran holding up the blank sheets of paper. I mean, we need to be really creative in building up some new structures here. And that's part of what this weekly event is about. So yeah. Thanks to everybody. Yeah.
so much for that input, Lester. And of course, as you all know, he's one of the founders of this project or program that we run with these the webinars and the publications, of course, with Egon Spiegel and Liu Cheng. So it's always nice to see you around. And yeah, definitely we'll also meet in Tanzania 2024. We are really planning for that. Some haven't been to Tanzania for a long time, and some haven't been there yet, but there's always time for everything.
Tanzania is my country-in-law. I married into it.
Sure. All Tanzanians know about that. Yeah.
Only the small group of us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Thomas, please.
Yeah, just to follow up, it's a good conversation. I'm very interested in the media. I've got some ideas for several film scripts. I've written a couple of plays. I've done a couple of novels that could be turned into, I'm also a literary figure and a poet. But one idea I've got for a film, well, I thought it was a BBC television series, right? Like a mini series, but it could be on Netflix. We're drawn a sort of, in a sense, the traditional African folk tale of the village around the fire. I grew up in a house where I read these folk tales. I had a book of African folk tales, a book of Celtic and so on and so on. I loved them as a kid. I think what's going wrong with the world is we've got confusion among the folk tales. And some people take them literally instead of realizing there's a moral teaching stories. And that's the point of these stories. So anyway, my script, and I'm happy to work on this with anybody, maybe someone in Africa, is the story is someone that's going around two different fires. They sit for one episode at the Jewish fire, and the storyteller, who's a great Hasid, tells them the story of Moses and the staff and the snake and the water. The whole Jewish mystery is done like a performance by the Jewish folktale guy. Then he goes to the Muslim fire, the next episode, and he hears about all the great Sufi stories and, Muhammad and Khadija and so on. Then he goes to the Buddhist story and he hears about Buddha's former lives and reaching enlightenment under a tree. Then he goes to the Hindu one and he hears those. And you could do one episode on each of the great faiths and the small faiths like Druids and stuff. We also love our stories. And that would get it across to kids, to a big audience, that actually we're one family. There'd be one episode on the African. I think the opening and maybe the closing one would be the African stories, which are the oldest in history. The cave they found down in the south, Blombosch Cave, 70,000 years ago, they were worshipping the creator as a python and putting arrowheads. So there's 70,000 years of continual religious worship in Africa going on. So they get the last story. It could be filmed at that cave, Anyway, that's my idea. If anyone wants to work with me on it, I think that would make a great Netflix mini-series.
Yeah, thank you so much for that offer, Thomas. Yeah, I think the invitation has been sent. Whoever wants to work on that, let's organize this together, and I'm sure that we'll come up with something nice.
Thanks.
Thank you. And Joe, you have a last comment or question? We only have a minute.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Thomas. I'm actually an animator. So these are some characters that I've created that I use to animate and tell stories. I would love to work with you on that project.
Okay, well, let's be in touch. I think we've got each other's emails. I'll email you. Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Ciao.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And so I'd like to thank you again for your time, for your participation. We are going to meet again next week. That will be actually the final webinar for this calendar year. So we'll be talking about Muslims and atheists and what they have to say to each other with Dr. Samia Murtaza. And so please join us again. Thank you so much and all the best. Bye-bye.
Bye, George. Bye.
Bye-bye.